Welcome one and all Gothamites to another episode of the Arkham Sessions. My name is Brian Ward. With me as always, the psychologist to the superheroes, superheroines, and supervillains of Gotham City and beyond, Dr. Andrea Letamendi. Hello, Andrea.
Hi, Brian. It's good to be here with you.
It is good to be here with you, discussing another Batman adventure. In fact, a new Batman adventure. That's right. We are beginning a brand new series. This is the companion series of sorts to Batman the Animated Series and the Adventures of Batman and Robin. This is an episode of a series that actually started a couple of years after those series, and this one is called The New Batman Adventures. Before we get into this new incarnation of our Gothamite friends, Andrea, I know you wanted to discuss some recent news.
Yes, I appreciate that. I think that for a lot of us, we are experiencing in our lives some things operating under business as usual, if that makes sense. And so I know our podcast isn't about current events. It's certainly not even about events that happen in the comics industry or even in our lives. But I think that to take a moment just to realize the impact of the election on folks and just to understand that that is a very broad, deep impact. I think it's important for us to take a moment and not operate under business as usual. And the reason for that is when we experience others act as though things haven't changed, it's disruptive to us. And it can be, even for some, somewhat disorienting and difficult to get through. So I don't want to move forward without just acknowledging that things are a little different for us. And, it's just literally days after the election, and we're not a political podcast, right? I mean,
Right.
We talk about Batman and we talk about mental health, but I think it's really relevant in the sense that a lot of people that we know personally and a lot of our listeners, as well as others in the field of mental health, are just grappling with what to do and how to handle the aftermath.
Right.
And so I don't want to act as if nothing has happened. I think that's not very mindful. The other thing I wanted to do is remind folks why we do this. And certainly it's to talk about Batman because we love Batman, but our main mission is to spread the awareness of mental health, to increase the public knowledge of psychology, to ensure that as many people as possible have information that could empower them. Right. Some of that information has to do with, what to do if you're feeling suicidal, where to go or who to call if you're experiencing domestic violence. Those are just some examples. And one thing that we also talk about is distress and trauma, anxiety, depression. And so I want to remind folks to practice self-care, to remind folks that self-care is very personally defined, and not just because you see something on Facebook or on Twitter or a series of things that might help somebody does not mean that it can help you.
Right.
So I say that because we all have our own very personal, individualized self-care plans. And if you don't already have one, start to maybe construct one, design one that you can practice. And I think that it's probably a good idea to practice that a little bit more nowadays.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing I want to ask folks to do is just to actively limit their exposure on social media. That's one thing that I recommend for self-care. But I think, again, while different things work for different people, this one is pretty universal in the sense of the idea that overexposure to some of those videos with sound, images, photographs, some of the things that we're being exposed to may not empower us if the magnitude is to the degree that it's disruptive and disabling. Right. So I want to remind folks that awareness and knowledge is really good for us. Knowing how other folks are experiencing this is good to us, but taking a moment to step back away unplug, cut ourselves off from social media for a bit, is really good for us as well, because we need to just limit the exposure and have a moment to process what is happening to us individually, as well as to those that are really close to us.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. Is that clear?
I think it's perfectly clear.
The last thing I want to say is that I know there are folks in this field who, when I say this field, in the mental health field, like folks who work in the mental health field or are professional helpers, if you will. I think that a lot of us are struggling with our work and where to go from here, and how to continue to be a professional helper, and how to be stewards of trauma, and to ask folks, I know I'm struggling with this myself, so I don't know how to articulate this quite yet, but to think about what brought us here to begin with. So what brought you into the field of mental health to begin with? Is it possible that those things, or that thing, again, a very personal thing, if that thing that brought you into the field is still providing you some energy, some light, some fire that you can get fueled from? I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do now, is just to pull from that and think about my origin story and why I'm here, and the idea that that hasn't changed for me.
Well, for many, it's a hard time out there. We totally understand, and we just want everyone to know that that everyone is in our thoughts. And we are here with brand new episodes of the Arkham Sessions, where we can talk about mental health and hopefully destigmatize some of this, just as we've always done over the last couple of years. And Drea, I just want to thank you personally for being here and for doing a show like this, because especially in times like this, your thoughts on these matters are incredibly important. So thank you.
I will try. Thank you.
So let's get started. This is a brand new series, as I mentioned before, and it premiered almost 2 years to the day that the finale of Batman the Animated Series aired. That was on September 15th, 1995. This show, which we are starting with Holiday Nights, actually aired September 13th, 1997. So 2 days shy of 2 years to the day of the finale of Batman the Animated Series. And a lot has changed. I mean, this is a series that is supposed to be kind of a sequel to the events that we had been following, but there's a lot that's different. I mean, for instance, the look of the show is entirely different. It is very similar to the TV series that was popular at the time, which was The Adventures of Superman. And you know, it follows very much that look. It's a little bit more cartoony than we're used to. What's interesting is there are also some moments that are maybe even darker than what we were used to in Batman the Animated Series. We'll talk about that. Drea, for this particular episode, I'd kind of like to focus mostly on the characters that we are introduced to, and maybe see how they are similar or dissimilar to the versions we had been following. Because ostensibly these are the same characters. We are just following them 2 years later.
Well, I'm even wondering if any time has actually passed for them.
I would almost have to think some time has passed. We can certainly talk about this. Let's get into it. Holiday Nights is an episode written by Paul Dini, and it is more of an anthology, which is interesting because this episode kind of sets up the foundation of the series. Ironically, the series is called The New Batman Adventures, but it focuses more on the other characters in Gotham than it will on Batman. And we kind of get that a little bit in this episode because it is 4 stories that all take place around the holiday season.
Can I ask you a question, since you're in the business of I guess, like TV shows and writing and how this thing would work. Like, why was this? Did you see this as kind of a sampler? Like this would bring people back into the show to know, like, look, all your favorites are still in the show, and all your favorite villains, and here's where they're all at. Is this sort of like where they're all at now summary? Why would they choose this to be the first episode?
Well, what's interesting is, and I think you could be right. I mean, it is going to introduce us to several characters that we're going to certainly become more familiar with as we move along in the series. It did air in September, so it's interesting that they chose a holiday theme for this particular episode. The thing that a lot of people don't necessarily realize is that this episode was adapted from a comic book, also written by Paul Dini. It was adapted from the Batman Adventures Holiday Special, which came out in 1995. Many of the same stories. There are some changes. For instance, the original comic had a Mr. Freeze story that wouldn't fit into this continuity. And there's some other changes to the comic. But for the most part, the stories we are seeing in this episode came from a previous incarnation. It's an adaptation. So yeah, the question is, why choose this one? Like, what is it about this set of stories, this anthology of holiday stories that would lend itself to introducing you to these characters or reintroducing you to these characters? And I think you might be onto something. In this one episode, we get to know a whole lot of people. I mean, we're talking Batman. We are talking Commissioner Gordon, who does look different from the incarnation in Batman the Animated Series. He's certainly looking older. He's looking a little more frail, if you will. We also get to see Barbara again, and she is as capable a Batgirl as we've ever seen. We also get to see Clayface, Harley, Ivy,
Poison Ivy,
the Joker, and we are introduced to a brand new Robin. This is Tim Drake, and so we will talk about that. And in answer to your question about whether we think any time has passed, we aren't allowed to talk about this, but.
Wait, why can't we talk about this?
Because we haven't seen it. We were not introduced to Dick Grayson in this particular episode.
Oh, gotcha.
But we
Okay.
happen to know that when we are introduced to him, he will be a little bit older, and he will no longer be Robin.
Okay.
So there is, a difference of time between the last episode of...
So, I hate to interrupt you. Are you going to allow me to acknowledge that... if Tim's here, Jason's not here. And if Jason's not here, where does that all fit in? Can we acknowledge that Batman has had this huge loss?
Okay, so let's talk about this. My gut reaction would be no. I think the animated series glossed over Jason Todd. And we almost have to treat the series itself and what we've seen. Now, if in the course of the series, Batman says, well, I once had this other Robin. Not the other Robin, but a different other Robin. Look, you're the third All right, look, let me tell you. There was this kid named Jason Todd. Like, if that happens, then yes, we can absolutely talk about it. But I don't think we can go into talking about Batman and Bruce Wayne's character in Holiday Nights and assume that he carries with him the baggage of Jason Todd.
Well, and I appreciate and respect the way that we started our analysis from the beginning, which was I only know what is told or what is told to me or what I see. Mm-hmm. And in just like a relationship with a patient, I wouldn't know about a loss, a death, a significant trauma if I didn't see it happening or it wasn't disclosed to me. Mm-hmm. So I can't make the assumption. I can move along and consider it
Yeah.
If I feel as though there are some signals and some symptoms there.
So let's talk about December 22nd. That's where this episode starts. And the very first adventure, if you will, is one that sets an interesting tone for the series. It is Harley and Ivy essentially using Bruce Wayne and his money to go on a shopping spree. And it's very funny. It's very jovial.
They use a lipstick, one of Poison Ivy's hypnotic, chemically laced lipsticks to essentially psychologically capture Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And they do so at a holiday party. And from that point on, for a considerable amount of time, he is following them into, or being forced to go into department stores and purchase clothes and shoes and just basically be enslaved by them.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about that holiday party, because we get to meet an old friend of ours, Veronica Vreeland, who, by the way, something that I forgot to mention on the last episode, which was Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, is the fact that for whatever reason, they decided to change Ronnie's hair from red to blonde in that movie, which was a little upsetting to me.
I wonder if it's because she's now not considered
bad.
Yeah, like
she's no longer a bad character. She's not
necessarily good, but she's kind of just a nice woman.
But that was in that movie, which seems to be the one and only time they change her hair color, because when we see Ronnie again in this episode, she's back to being a redhead. And you're right. She's no longer the uppity socialite we once knew, the one who made fun of the Penguin and drove him back into crime and all of that. She doesn't appear to be the villainous type character anymore. Now she kind of seems to be a really decent friend to Bruce Wayne. How would you say that relationship has changed?
I agree. And I think that there's this hint that they've had a significant amount of time as partners.
Yeah.
She's clearly not his exclusive girlfriend or
and I don't even
partner.
think I almost got the sense, and maybe you disagree, that at one point in time, because you know how we've questioned it throughout Batman the Animated Series, every time he hangs out with Veronica, we're like, really? You're going to hang out with her? I almost get the sense that maybe they dated at one point, but now they are just close friends, because she makes fun of him at the holiday party, and she ends up introducing him to a slew of girls who are interested in dating the most eligible bachelor in Gotham City. And she looks back and chuckles about it. It's almost like
she's not threatened.
Right. She is almost that friend who is going to do this to tease you a little bit. So I thought that was interesting. And that's when Ivy ends up kissing Bruce with her special lipstick and enamoring him. He then ends up following Harley and Ivy on this shopping spree. As the lipstick begins to wear off and he begins to fight back a little bit, Harley is going to kiss him again using the lipstick, and he backs up in retreat and falls down an elevator shaft. That is when we hear Harley's reaction to essentially killing Bruce Wayne. Let's take a listen.
We killed him. Oh well.
We were going to do it anyway.
We got his credit cards. What's to worry?
Drea, this is different from the other incarnations to some degree of Ivy and Harley that we had seen in the past. For starters, the last time that we had seen Ivy, if I remember correctly, she was on her way out of Gotham after she had tried to sort of go straight, but she had the pod people, husband and kids, and whatever.
That was very wild. That particular
but now she's back in Gotham City, and she is acknowledging that they have zero problem with killing someone, and even acknowledges that they were going to do it anyway. Like when they were done with Bruce, they were going to kill him. What was your take on that?
I mean, yeah, I think that it was very clear that whatever their plans were for him, it sounds as though they were going to continue manipulating him and abusing him. And by the way, I kept thinking about Jessica Jones. I know we're not supposed to cross streams here, but his manipulation and his mind control was very much like Jessica Jones and the Purple Man, in the sense that there were moments that he knew he was acting like he was physically behaving and doing things that he did not want to do, but was psychologically trapped there.
Yeah, unlike other times that we've seen Ivy, this wasn't a case of him falsely thinking that he was in love with her. He was fully cognizant of the fact that he wasn't in love with her. His body just couldn't resist.
And so hang in with me here about this theory, because I could be completely off. But the way that I understood and interpreted this plot is that these two women who are, close. It doesn't demonstrate here that they're romantically together, Harley and Harley and Ivy, but they're these two bonded women who take advantage of this man and take control of his body, but leave his mind somewhat intact, so he's somewhat present while they're taking advantage and manipulating him. And so what they have him do is, I mean, this is maybe I'm just overthinking this. They go on a shopping spree. There's actually there's like a montage, which, in the mid 90s, when I was perhaps watched this for the first time and was way into Archie comics and Batman the Animated Series, this kind of stuff was the best stuff. Like it was almost a psychedelic montage. It was like wearing different outfits and posing and going shopping. I mean, a Veronica Lodge type stuff that like, I loved it. And it was a hyperbole because we didn't see this stuff before, right? It was this weird, you're right. This montage had like weird, like kind of flashy animation, and it was, the colors were entirely, non-realistic. It was fantasy. And it was. And I think that's when I realized this is not, I think what happened really happened, but I think the point here was that this is a woman's fantasy, that if we are to think of this as their subversive message of, we are tired of men having all the money and controlling us and telling us what to do, we're breaking out. And this is, I think, what Harley and Ivy have done consistently. We're breaking out of the normative gender ideology and turning it on its head. And so what you see us do is manipulate with the lipstick, spend all his money on shopping sprees. I mean, it's ultra feminine, right? They're buying clothes, they're wearing high heels, they're like giggling and laughing and shopping in these stores. All while the 12 Days of Christmas is playing in the background. Exactly. Yeah. So you get this sense of, well, at least I got the sense of, is this some kind of comment about women using some of that, gender normative stuff, turning it on its head to abuse Batman, to get back at him, to take everything that society has sort of, trapped them in and use that as a weapon. Right. I don't know, I could be just overthinking this, but I felt a strong sense of, this is kind of Paul Dini and other writers laughing at gender in this show. I mean, really, when you think about it, because they don't know that Bruce is Batman, they only know that he is the most eligible bachelor, the richest man in Gotham City. Really, what else would Ivy and Harley do with a guy like that? I mean, they would obviously make him buy them a bunch of stuff. Well, but that's the point. There are other things that bring women satisfaction and fulfillment. But this is, like, I think that's exactly the point. What would you do if you had power? You go on a shopping spree? Really?
I don't know.
You buy jewelry and high heels? I think that's kind of what this was about.
Either way, you get him to spend his money on you. Whether it's shopping spree at Macy's or a
Right.
or I guess in this case, it was Bergdorf's. But whether it's shopping there or something else, you still get the richest man in Gotham City to buy you stuff. Like it's essentially a robbery. I mean,
Yes.
Instead of a bank, it's Bruce, who's essentially got the same amount of money as a bank, and he's kind of built like a bank. But
Well, and I'm extending my analogy to the moments later when Bruce has changed into Batman and he's now pursuing the two ladies, and there's another. It's not a montage so much as kind of a fight scene where they completely clobber him and punch him and kick him and hammer him, and it's just one blow after another. And again, I couldn't help but think, this is a play on gender. This is these women beating the crap out of this guy as a commentary, if you will, on gender ideology.
right. So let's talk about Harley specifically, because the last time that we had really seen her during Harley's holiday, here was a girl who wanted to go straight. Who felt like she couldn't because everyone else was sort of pushing her back into this crime lifestyle. They couldn't let go of it, so she couldn't let go of it. And they acknowledged at the end of that episode, in fact, Batman was very encouraging of Harley. And now, a couple years later, she's full-blown criminal again. There doesn't really seem to be any inkling of that character that wanted to go straight. And in fact, not only did she not want to go straight, she was okay with the fact that she had just killed Bruce Wayne.
But I think it was targeted. I wonder what else have they been doing to imply that they're criminals. Right now, in this kind of mini episode, what we're seeing is they're taking revenge on him, or they're using him to enact these sort of like physical, violent, abusive, behaviors. And again, I think it has to do with some kind of expression that they're trying to get out. But you're right. This is different than her wanting to go straight and feeling like, that sense of compassion from Batman and feeling like she has something to live for, something hopeful. I think it was tons of fun. I mean, I think this is what you start with.
Yeah.
With a new series.
Yeah, let's move forward a couple of days to December 24th. It's Christmas Eve. We're at Mayfield's department store, and we see Harvey Bullock with Montoya, who I know you were very happy about seeing, as the mall Santa and elf, which you may not have been all that happy about seeing Montoya dressed as an elf. And they are sitting there with the kids, telling them what they want for Christmas.
My name is Mary McSweeney, Santa. Can you bring my daddy home for Christmas?
Gee, kid, I don't know. Where is your pop?
In prison.
You mean your dad is Mad Dog? I mean, Mike McSweeney?
Uh-huh.
Poor kid. I sent our old man up the river 3 months ago. Listen, kiddo, it's like this. Yeah, I'd like to help you out, but, what I mean is, sometimes even Santa can't make every wish come true. Here, kid, buy yourself something nice.
Thank you, Santa. Can I buy something for my daddy, too?
As long as it ain't a hacksaw, why not?
We're seeing a softer Harvey now. And certainly we've seen him progress a little bit since that first time that we saw him, where he was just very anti-Batman. But we are seeing a Harvey Bullock who seems to have multi-layers.
I think I appreciated, and I'm moving further into this particular mini storyline, but when we later see him and Montoya work together, his partnership with her is much more mutual. I think he feels safe with her. He allows her to take the lead. He he supports her. There's this sense of it's not just him trying to get through and be independent, which is what he's done before.
Yeah.
And, she's one of my favorite characters in the series. So to see her be empowered, I hate having to repeat myself, but even though this is a different mini episode, here you have more empowered women. Batgirl comes in. Montoya essentially is one of the key figures in saving the day. Clayface is the villain who we learn is I didn't quite like, he was the kids.
Yeah, we essentially saw that Montoya and Bullock were basically on a stakeout while they were dressed as Santa Claus and Santa's elf, and they were at Mayfield's department store as this string of kids, these little hoodlum kids, were stealing things and running away. And when they're all cornered, they end up joining forces. Literally, they become one character, and we learn that it's Clayface. And that's interesting because the last time we had seen Clayface was in Mudslide, as he's sort of dissipating into the water. And
we thought he had died.
And apparently he has not.
He's just maybe he became mini puddles, and that's where those kids came from.
Yeah, lots of little mini puddles. But and he's considerably different now. He is just straight up murderous. In fact, it's almost different. I'm not sure why he was stealing things from the store, because it almost seemed like he would rather just get into a brawl and kill people. Batgirl comes in and saves the day. In fact, it was kind of interesting. She almost pulled a Superman a little bit when she was Barbara Gordon there at the department store, and then the next thing you know, she's ducking behind a counter and becomes Batgirl. So she's like basically changing in the middle of the department store.
Right.
But yeah, she was as empowered as ever. There's a moment when the vigilante works in conjunction with the police when she is being held, almost as if she can't win this battle. And Montoya and Bullock are instructed to shoot at the lights hanging above Clayface. Now, Clayface is in the middle of a hole that had been sort of cut in the ice, the ice rink, when he fell and crashed through it. So he's surrounded once again by water, and by shooting these lights, he is electrocuted again. We don't know if he has died.
Maybe he can't die anymore. Maybe he's invulnerable.
Well, he has no organs.
Right.
He has no, I guess there almost isn't a way to kill him.
And maybe that's why he's different. So if he experienced this life-threatening event, he fell from this cliff, many episodes ago, and should have died and didn't. There's that sense of invincibility.
Yeah.
And it's possible that has propelled him into behaving more extremely in some of the things that he does.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're a character that is essentially invincible, if you have no organs, if you have nothing that you need to keep you alive, and you can essentially do whatever you want, you can be whatever you want at any time, that's got to do something to your psyche. That's got to do something to your to the way that you think. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
So we move forward to December 31st. It's New Year's Eve, and Commissioner Gordon, Batman, and Robin are watching a taped broadcast from the Joker where he announces,
"Hi-ho, couch potatoes. I'm interrupting the toilet bowl to bring you my very special New Year's resolution. Starting tonight at midnight, I, your loving Uncle Joker, do solemnly vow not to kill anyone for a whole year. Which means I'm going to have to work extra fast to bump off a few more of you today."
Hysterical.
Drea, let's talk about the Joker here. This is one of the first times that he is legitimately talking about, like, I am just going to murder a party of people.
Right.
And unlike Christmas with the Joker...
Well, in Christmas with the Joker, he took one night off.
Right.
Which completely sent Batman, into his own kind of episode, right? Like he became even more hypervigilant. But yeah, there's this intensity and again, this another extreme example.
Batman and Robin come in, save the day. It's a very simple story, but it does give us our first peek at the new Joker. Dre, what do you think about the new Joker's physical appearance in the new Batman Adventures?
I never really liked this aesthetic change. I never really did. He's sort of a simpler face, just drawn with angles, like just, I'm not sure what you would call that style, but
pinhole eyes.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's intimidating. I don't think it's quite the same.
Yeah,
it's not my favorite, but it's still. I mean, overall, the animation is still good.
Right. This is our opportunity to meet Tim, although I don't know that we're actually introduced to him as Tim. He's just clearly the Tim Drake Robin instead of the Dick Grayson Robin.
He's younger.
Yeah. He is definitely a little bit more of a novice. There are things that we see. He's not as acrobatic as Dick was. There was a moment where Batman jumps onto the roof of a truck, and Tim has trouble getting up to the top of it. He struggles ever so slightly. Drea, what was your take on this new Robin?
We only see a little bit of him, but he's a good Tim. He's not perfect. Like you said, he's not an exceptional fighter. He's not an exceptional acrobat. He slips, he struggles, he fumbles a bit. And I'm not, Dick Grayson wasn't necessarily perfect in every way, but certainly had a much stronger background and I think just better skills.
But you know what he's not doing? He's not questioning Batman's desire to go out on New Year's Eve and save the day the way Dick did on Christmas with the Joker.
Would never, yeah.
Tim seems to be that character that wants to go out and help out Batman each and every time Batman goes out. There's no complaint from him.
And I'm not supposed to talk about this, but for folks who know Tim absolutely wants to help Batman in every way possible. Mm-hmm. That's just who Tim is.
Right. And we'll learn more about that as we go. The fourth little story, in fact, it's not even really a story so much as it's just kind of a capper, is a nice little moment between Batman and Commissioner Gordon at this small little tavern. But this is a sweet moment where you learn that it's a tradition of theirs on New Year's Eve to share a cup of coffee together. Batman shows up, and he's only there for a good, 15 seconds? And then something that I thought was funny was Commissioner Gordon then orders himself a little something. Let's take a listen.
And now, Joe, if I could get one of your famous cheesesteaks to go, I'll be ready to call it a night. Anything for you.
As he turns back to Batman, we see that Batman has already paid the check. Now, Batman didn't pay for that extra food. And if you notice at the end of the episode, Gordon walks out of the tavern without it. So
he
Gordon
doesn't get it.
Yeah, Gordon didn't get his extra, to go order. I found that a little sad. I'm like, boy, Batman could be a better friend by waiting a little bit. But I don't know. Drea, what did you think of the episode as a whole? Not a whole lot of, deep psychological insights, but we certainly got a nice reintroduction to these characters. We got a nice foundation.
I liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was uplifting. And again, maybe it's because of the state of the culture, socially and politically right now, but I can't help but feel as though this was an episode that really highlighted the powerful female characters and showed Batman as someone who is getting kicked around a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So I think, and of course Tim being having some faults, having some flaws. I think that they did a really nice job of introducing some dynamic characters who have some mysterious stuff about them going on, and that's human. I think that the very short, brief representations are very much realistic in the sense that these are the characters that we expect to see.
Yeah, and we are going to learn a lot more about Tim Drake in the next episode, Sins of the Father, which is going to tell us everything we need to know about his origin and why he's Robin. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and hearing your analysis on Tim Drake further. Drea, until then, where can folks find you online?
I'm on Twitter at Arkham Asylum Doc. My website is underthemaskonline.com, and I'm on Instagram, Arkham Asylum Doc.
You can find me on Twitter. I am at bward028. You can also find both of us on Twitter over at Arkham Sessions. You can also email us. We are arkhamsessions@gmail.com. Come like us on Facebook and join our community over at imz.com/Arkham. And, check out everything we've got going on there. Then, of course, you need to follow our family over at Fanbase Press. You can follow them on Twitter at fanbase_press, and you can go to fanbasepress.com, see everything they've got coming up, lots of podcasts, lots of their own comics, and lots of cool news. So go check them out. Until next week, I am Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Andrea Letamendi.
And together we are
the Arkham Sessions.
Well, here's to survival.